Hey folks, I'm totally not named Dan, though you can call me that if you want, and recently I've been talking about some of the changes that have happened with Set 5 of the My Hero Academia card game and UniVersus. Today I'd like to talk a bit more about the future of the game, but to do that I'm going to have to look at the past. Because you see, while nobody knew it at the time, this game was bought up by How Interactive, a holdings company, back in 2021. They actually announced this, or rather, they announced that Paul Wachowski and Lohan Wei of the company were buying out Jasco back in 2022. But this means that actually this has been going on for pretty much all of MHA's run in the card game. So we don't really know what decisions were made with POW Interactive and the new owners, and what decisions were made from Jasco. But as I understand it, Jason Horonsky of Jasco, or Jason Company as it was short for, has now completely retired from the game, and so it's being run by an entirely new company, essentially. Which, I mean, if we hadn't had that transition period, would be very worrying, because I know how changes of companies have gone with this game in the past, and Fantasy Flight were terrible for it. Whereas Jasco have had the game going for over a decade, been a really good company, been really good for the health of the game. Admittedly, they've had their flaws, and I've called them out here and there, but mostly it was just they were a small company who couldn't do distribution that well. Most of their decisions were actually really good. These guys, as said, I don't know if they're changes to nationals to make it invite only, or the changes to the way booster packs works based on them. But I will say I really like the fact that we now get a character in every pack. I like the fact that additions are gone, because, well, bringing those in was just stupid, really. But they're making some rather more major changes to the card format now that they've become basically the sole owners. So while the cards used to look like this, they now look like this. And I've heard some people compare these new cards to the Digimon card frames, just to say that basically they look like every Bandai card game and not their own unique thing. No, no. I can definitely see some comparisons, but Digimon has hard boundaries between its colors and its placements of things on the card. This does not. This is just all gradient. And where Digimon used the card image effectively, so that you would be able to overlay cards nicely, so that you would be able to see all the actual important details in easy to read places, this doesn't. This doesn't at all. This takes none of the gameplay into account. And you can see they've moved the name to the middle of the card, which means if you're looking for the name of a card where you'd usually find it, you just can't find the name. The symbols on the card are tiny, so you can't see those during deck building. All the block zone, the damage, the difficulty, all of that, way smaller. Even the text is smaller, so it's harder to actually read the cards. We're getting into the Yu-Gi-Oh side of things with that. This is not a change for gameplay. This is a change for collectability, for seeing more of the art. And they did, when this change was announced, come out with this flowchart, which said that collectability was a priority, and then immediately put down below, but this doesn't mean that collectability is prioritized over gameplay. Which I find very funny, because it means if what they're saying is true, their graphic designer couldn't even graphic design a graphic to show the priorities in their graphic design. This is bad. This is real bad. To the point where I'm actually going to be proxying a lot of the cards, just printing off versions that look correct, and maybe I'll use them over the top of the real cards. Maybe I won't, because I don't really want to support this change. I'll be honest. And I talked about the symbols for a moment. You'll see also, these symbols are not the symbols that we had before. And yeah, I'll admit, when I first saw these, I was horrified, because so many of them are so hard to read. Like, which one of these symbols is all? If it didn't have the name underneath, you would never know, because it looks nothing like the old all symbol. And it looks more like a metal symbol, or I don't know. It's a gear, it's not an... I guess the red circle didn't really symbolize all of the concept either. But this looks nothing like it should be all. And likewise, I saw somebody else's thumbnail and saw that air symbol on it and spent 5 minutes just going, what the hell is that symbol? Because it's just not clear. So many of these aren't clear. And yeah, I'll admit, a bunch of them are clear. A bunch of them are very obviously legible. I mean, death, fire, water, all of those are great. But the only actual one I like here, the only one I consider a positive change is chaos, because just I really like having a pink symbol. It's silly, it's fun, it's bright, it's vibrant, it's noticeable. It looks good. So in any of my future card edits, you'll be seeing the old chaos symbol, but you're seeing it edited to look a little more pink. And yeah, these card frames, not a fan. They look alright on characters, and I do like that the characters now have traits on them. Like Hawks here is both a villain and a pro hero. So theoretically, you can use both villain and pro hero cards. Like we've got Pro Hero Breaker 1 on this asset here. So there's some interesting stuff with that. But, I mean, the card frames are bad. The symbol changes, not great. I will say I do find it very funny, actually. We've now got a star for good, meaning that theoretically I can just include Yu-Gi-Oh cards because they share a star symbol with some of the characters now. And I'd love to just go, ha, my character is the Blue Eyes White Dragon. But I don't think I could get away with playing a 3,000 hand size monster. Just gonna draw yourself to death at that point. I'm willing to hear them out. I'm willing to see what else they do. But these card frames, they ain't a great start. It does seem like they're more about collectability than actual gameplay as a company, which sucks. But then we do have another announcement from them, which is this. Starter decks for Cowboy Bebop and Trigun Stampede. Now, Cowboy Bebop we've had as a franchise in the game before. It was a fun set. Cowboy Bebop had its own problems, in that it was a higher power level than any set before it. But that was intentional. That was a way to change the power level of the game. My Heroes kind of reverted that a little bit. I'm curious to see where the Cowboy Bebop deck will fall on the spectrum there. And it's just nice to see it back in the game, because it's a classic franchise for it. And as a starter deck, these apparently are going to be 60 cards, so for the standard format rather than the My Hero format. Whether they'll be legal in the My Hero format or not, we don't actually know. Though it seems unlikely, just on the grounds that, well, they're not My Hero. And they're apparently going to be competitive out of the box, with a choice of 2 characters. We know that one is obviously Spike. I'm not sure who the other is right now. We'll find out closer to release, I guess. Then for Trigun Stampede, I believe they said Wolfwood for the second character. It's definitely Vash for the first. And I've not seen the show. I don't know what's going on with translating the characters to the cards. What I do know is Vash, specifically, is all about running away, using his shots to get away, using them defensively so that his opponents can't follow him or can't aim properly themselves. So the ability on his character card here to discard an attack to find 3 theoretically non-attack cards to block with, that's fantastic. That's really in character. And you'll see he also has the word mill on him, which is interesting because card games have been afraid to use the word mill for so long. They've just written out what the effect actually is. Or up until a few years back, Magic decided to change that and actually print mill on their cards. And even then, card games like UniVersus did not follow suit. So it's interesting to see that they're doing so now. And then we got Tenacious, which is just a shorter way of saying playable while committed. It's not necessary, but I actually really like that they've changed that, because that is such a common phrase on cards, that just shortening it makes things easier on players. Maybe it doesn't make things easier on new players, but if like this card, they're going to have it written in reminder text at the bottom. As long as they introduce new players to it well with that, make sure that it's clearly stated in starter decks, make sure that some of the commoner cards state it clearly as well. It's not going to be an issue for learning the game at that point. And as long as it's not an issue for learning the game, this is a great change. Now, moving on to the branding, I really don't like this shade of orange. Yeah, I get that it's meant to reference attacks, but it is a massive eyesore. And likewise, these card backs, I thought they were terrible when I first saw them. I've had a bit of time to get used to them and realize that actually, no, they're just terrible for card backs. If you turn them sideways, they make a great business card. But that painted style just does not fit with UniVersus. Looking at the booster packs and stuff like that, yeah, seeing that big orange name of the game on the packs, it's now clear that the entire game links together in a way that it may not have been in previous sets. That's cool, but at the same time, do you have to be that awful orange? And likewise, the new company name, sure, UVS Games, great, says what it is, takes the Jason out of it because Jason's left. I understand that. That makes sense. It's still very meh. And the old UniVersus logo definitely looked better than any logo that UVS Games or How Interactive have come out with. I generally don't think the changes are great. As said, I like that they're introducing these starter decks of different IPs. Apparently, we're going to be seeing a lot more of those going forward. And we're going to be seeing a few more main IPs as well for sets. But we're going to be seeing so many of these smaller introductions that are just starter decks. And I think that's a great way to include a lot more in what has always been a crossover game. And I think the choice of mixing Cowboy Bebop, an IP we're familiar with Trigun Stampede, a much newer IP, at least given that they've not taken the regular Trigun. And I may know some things about that, but I can't tell you right now. I may in fact be under NDA as to what's going on with regular Trigun. Yeah, the fact that they've mixed an older IP that we know with a newer IP that we don't, but is in a similar vein, I really like that. That's a great way to introduce this concept. And I think, yeah, actually, genuinely, the branding sucks, the art and graphic design sucks, but those are the only places where I think the new company has fallen down. In terms of promoting the game, in terms of keywording things, in terms of giving traits to characters, in terms of giving us new IPs, everything else that UVS Games or Power Interactive are doing is fantastic for this. And will probably do the game a lot of good. I really do think they just need to get better graphic designers or maybe just revert the frames back to what they were. Other than that, I'm very happy with what they're doing. And yeah, we'll talk a little more about this in the future, I guess. But I just wanted to go over this, let you know what's going on with the game, and yeah, give you all my thoughts. I'll be back with my friends in the next video. Until then, see you next time. Bye.